I want to welcome Bella from Occupy Oakland to the afternoon matinee of the OPN chat. And I'm going to try to get rid of this little screen here, so bear with me. We'll just go ahead into the interview. So Bella's taking time out of a busy day. She's going to tell you a little bit about what she's doing this evening, but we're going to launch right into it. Thank you so much for replying. I know you've been busy and doing a lot of things, so we really appreciate you taking the time out for us. So let's just start right in. If you want to give a short introduction about yourself and your geography and kind of who and what you're about, that would be great.
Well, my name is Jessica. Everybody calls me Bella because my Twitter handle is Bella Aco, and I also stream under that handle as well. I'm 28 years old. I'm a college student majoring in speech communications. My major before this was computer application systems, so very much into computers. I really love to debate. I like to speak. So with debate, I kind of really got into politics, got into what's happening right now with the world, and the more that I got involved in the politics, the more I felt like that there's something that I had to do to kind of fix things. And then here comes the Occupy movement. And being that I'm from Oakland and that I live in Oakland, California, when the general strike on November 2nd happened, I felt the desire to come and support that. After being out there for a number of hours with a college instructor of mine and some friends from school, and then seeing the very unnecessary response by the police department, I picked up a camera and just started to film, started to document everything. And ever since then, I've been a freelance citizen, occupied journalist, videographer, what have you.
Outstanding. So give us a little bit of detail about how you got involved in Occupy. Like, what was the first step that you took to join the movement and be such a vibrant part of it?
Well, the first step, like I said, was the General Assembly. Was the general strike. I was very much interested in attending that. And afterwards, I found out about the General Assembly, which now majority of us have come to know it as the decision-making process for Occupy Oakland, very direct democratic process. And my first time there, my mind was blown. It was really beautiful to see people in the community coming together to participate in these discussions with each other, regardless of their differences, focusing more on the similarities and the goals that they had in common. It was also very empowering to see that individuals could come together and not only have these discussions, but make decisions that would then come to fruition based on the General Assembly. So after that, I got really into Occupy Oakland. I started to just meet a few people, and just with me kind of being around, I started to try to help how I could, when I could. And with Occupy Oakland embracing autonomous action, it's really easy for me to kind of step in. And when I see things that I see need to be done, if I'm able to help, then I do. That's kind of been the story of my involvement since then.
Well, that's good. And you are a very active and energetic participator, like out in the field. Could you let us know kind of what areas you cover? I know and there's your Occy dog. That's awesome. What's his or her name?
Brownie. This is Brownie.
Excellent. So we know you're on the ground there in Oakland and San Francisco Bay Area, but we know for a fact you've gotten as far out as Sacramento. There's a story there. So are you pretty much in the widespread Northern California area?
I'm in Oakland, which is the East Bay area. That puts me about 15 minutes away from San Francisco. So I'm very kind of centrally located. Mm-hmm. So if there are bigger events in Sacramento, which is a couple hours away, or Redwood City, which is about a 45-minute to an hour drive away from me, then I'll probably go and cover those. Typically, I tend to stay more towards the 14th and Broadway, 19th and Telegraph areas where Occupy Oakland does majority of its actions. Mm-hmm. But right now it seems like Occupy Oakland is spreading out, going to various parts of Oakland, whether it be downtown, West Oakland, North Oakland, East Oakland. And so with that, we're becoming a little bit more spread out just as a movement. And with me documenting it, it just happens, like I follow in suit.
Right. Well, we really appreciate all the stuff you bring to us because you're truly the eyes and ears we have on the ground, and you get right in the face of people, and that's awesome. I mean, there's no doubt that what we're seeing is real life. I was wondering if you'd care to speak anything to anything about the events in Sacramento or not. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would love to hear your story if you want to share it.
Sure, I don't mind that at all. Occupy Oakland and the Antifa or anti-fascist group went to Sacramento to support Occupy SAC in their protest against the neo-Nazi. So basically, I had joined Occupy Oakland and Occupy SAC and the anti-fascist group to protest the neo-Nazi organization talking about the genocide of white farmers in Africa. Once I had gotten there, though, and met with my white counterparts, one who had the same press badge as me and two others who did not, I was then escorted off of the Capitol lawn with a threat for arrest, saying that if I did not go to the sidewalk, that I would be arrested. And that was a very, it was a very disturbing thing because they were legitimizing that because by saying that I didn't have a Capitol press badge, but none of the live streamers had Capitol press badges. But then none of them were grilled like that, the way that I was. None of them were escorted the way that I was, and none of them were threatened to be arrested in the way that I was. So then after that, I mean, I couldn't obviously ignore their order at that point because if I was arrested, I would have been arrested for not having a Capitol press badge, which I would have lost that because I did not have one. After that time, when I went to the sidewalk, a police line was formed then in front of me. So even if I did try to access the lawn again, I would then be convicted of breaking a police line or whatever kind of, I don't know exactly what charge that would be, but I know that it's illegal to break through a police line.
Right.
And so there's a number of different, inherencies that they put in place, structural inherencies that they had put in place to back up the racial prejudice that I had experienced at the Capitol. So, I mean, it was very disturbing to see that because of the color of my skin that I was not being allowed to film. I was being put in a protester position as someone who had came with the intent to only document, which at that point I started to voice my opinion. I started to voice my opinion in the way that I felt like my constitutional rights were being encroached upon by the very people who were being paid to uphold them. I was very upset by that, and I'm continuing my pursuit of this with the ACLU. I've also contacted other organizations to discuss this because we all should be, I think as Americans, period, we all should be infuriated by this. Like, regardless if the constitutional amendments were first meant to protect white men or not, now the understanding is that it's supposed to apply to all Americans, to all naturalized Americans, and to the point to where, as an American citizen who was born on this soil, who can trace my family back all the way to the first French settler, it's absolutely ridiculous that I would not be able to access my rights based on the color of my skin. Like, obviously, the civil rights movement is not over. Obviously, Occupy has its work cut out for them because we still face this type of very accepted systematic injustice and oppression based on the color of people's skin. And not only just that, but based on the amount of money you have in the bank account now. Like, it's not even just race anymore. Now it's regardless of race. If you're not worth a certain amount of money, you might as well be black or Hispanic or Asian in a community that is not necessarily friendly to those minority groups. So, I mean, it's a very unfortunate thing. What happened in Sacramento, which just highlighted the blatant racism, that highlighted the fact that people are very well adjusted to the injustices in our society, for the simple fact that there weren't more people who are outraged about that, So this is something that I'm going to continue to pursue, and when given the opportunity to talk about it, we'll do so.
Yep. I think you represented yourself so well then. There was a lot of East Coast viewers watching that, and it was such a dramatic unfolding, and we were all so proud to be part of a movement and to have a person there on the ground doing that, on our behalf and speaking out. And of course, everybody just wishes they could reach through there and help you out and help you fight that battle. But, thank you so much for doing that. You're such a eloquent and well articulated speaker, and when you confront people it carries some passion and power. So it speaks well of you, and we're grateful for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I was like, I wish I could do that. What's the biggest lesson you think you've learned as being part of Occupy?
You know, there have been a number of different lessons, and right now I think that two are running neck and neck with each other. The first one being that Occupy is the one movement that I've seen that has really brought together people from all different walks of life. And so even though a lot of people I'm going to butt heads with individuals, but we're all still working towards the same goal. So it's kind of taught me to not pay so much attention to a lot of the infighting that goes on, I guess, within Occupy, because you see a lot of people just working out their issues to get their goals accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I'm starting to notice. I'm sorry, you were going to ask me something?
No, that's good. That's good. I was, thinking you said something that jarred something in my memory, and then I lost it right on the fly, because I was trying to listen to you at the same time. What do you think the three most important things we need to do as part of Occupy lay ahead of us in the near future?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to do is really have the security versus freedom conversation, or security versus safety, some type of conversation like that, because when we see these elevated attacks by the system, by the current government, by law enforcement, against occupiers, against protesters, nonviolent protesters who are fighting for social and economic justice, when we see this, we need to start having a conversation that would allow us to have a level of transparency, but that will also allow us to have a level of security within the movement to protect ourselves from these attacks. The same way, the same way that the attacks are advancing, Occupy strategies need to advance, and so that's one thing that I think really needs to happen. I think in order for the strategies to advance and people to start to really be able to have security, as occupiers, and I think the citizen journalists and the medics and things of that nature, I think they're occupiers too, because they're out there at every event. They're out there experiencing the same things that we are. We constantly see that we bond together through these tragedies, but we don't really get to know each other,
right.
And so I think in order for us to really have that sense of security, we need to know each other. We need to know the people that we've come to trust, that we've come to know through the movement, but not necessarily as an individual. And so I think that a lot of relationship building could be the second thing that maybe needs to be done within Occupy. And also I think a conversation needs to happen about the internet. There's obviously been a lot of legislation that is being enacted to kind of stifle Occupy's growth through Facebook, through Twitter, through all these social networks. So I think that a conversation needs to happen as far as what we're going to do when the internet gets shut down, or if it gets shut down, or when it becomes really illegal to where if you post something, you will go to jail. What are we going to do when these things start happening? So I think that outreach and relationship building and strategizing are the three things that Occupy needs to really work on if sustainability is a goal.
Yeah, I agree with all three of those things for exactly the same reasons. I always think that when we're so dependent on a particular system for communication or information exchange, then it elevates it as a prime target. So we got to have Plan B somehow, because this movement is so driven by the communication technology, because we wouldn't have had the opportunity to see you in Sacramento, and then how is the message going to get out there? And it's a huge concern. Also, the reason that we'd like to do these interviews that I've started is because I felt there's a need for that. I come back to, okay, we need to make these things personal, not abstract. It's 1,000 protesters is good, but 1,000 people are better. And the only way we can to do that is one-on-one and face-to-face, any way we can. So those things speak pretty close to my heart. I appreciate you pointing them out. What is your next step in Occupy?
There are a couple things in the works actually right now. I'm trying to get a conversation started, a very serious conversation, almost a planning conversation started for a national a national Occupy bail fund. Not to say that other states don't need it, but if you look towards Chicago, if you look towards like New York and you look towards California, people are being arrested by the hundreds. Like there are a lot of mass arrests,
Right.
not to mention the individual arrests that happen daily there. And so the conversation to have a bail fund where we're not throwing away our resources, where there can be some turnaround, where we can kind of like recycle the bail money that we've been using, would be ideal. Granted, we would need a lot of capital for that. The turnaround is slow. And so there has to be a lot of conversations, and we have to do a lot of networking to try to get some things started. But I think that the start time for this conversation is long overdue.
Right.
So that's going to be actually one of the very next things that I was talking about and setting up for later on this week. Also, another thing that we were talking about is somehow we need to link our occupies. We need to link Occupy Wall Street and Occupy Oakland. We need to have maybe one day a week where there's maybe a spokes council or something to where we can have conversations through the various occupies, because or our committees that are in charge of that, because we need to be linked. We need to be linked in our communications, even though we support autonomous action, even though we understand that snatch and grab in Oakland is maybe similar but not the same as stop and frisk in New York. Like, we need to be talking with each other, and we need to link up, and we need to realize that it is strength in numbers, and there's only so many people in Oakland, and there are only so many people in New York. But if we really link together and our line of communication is definite and solid, that it, first of all, guards against like infiltration, it guards against false information, and it definitely helps us to solidify ourselves as a movement across the country, and to where an injury to one really will be like an injury to all. We will definitely all feel that and come together in solidarity. So I think that that's another thing we're working.
Yeah, we definitely need to be serious about being united. I mean, we say it all the time, but we need to act on that in a huge way, because if it comes down to numbers, we win every time.
Right.
So that's the thing. Maybe if you feel comfortable with it, you could toss out and tell the people what you're doing this evening, just to show, you're like a woman on the move and on the go and just working it all the time.
Well, I have some tech meetings today. I have to meet with a couple streamers to see who's going to cover the Trayvon Martin protest that's happening at 14th and Broadway a little later on this evening, and also who's going to go. I'm going to be one of the ones who is going and doing rides to Redwood City to protest against Mitt Romney and his political campaign. So, like, we're all over the place, consistently having different solidarity actions. I'm constantly having to film or at least be present in the I don't know, because of the possibility of police violence. Like, it's like I like to be able to film and show that these are very community building, that these are very socially in tune events that people are participating in, but it seems like the streams are more being used to like highlight the level of police violence to the nonviolent protesters. So, like, if there's an event, which there constantly is because of the autonomous action, whether you're going to have home foreclosure defense or whether you're going to have the anti-Mitt Romney or anti-fascism or anti-neo-Nazi campaign, like, as a streamer, as somebody who's dedicated to not only supporting the movement and documenting, like, I'm always really, really busy with either trying to schedule or just trying to get a stream on. So today we're going to Redwood City to protest against Mitt Romney and Meg Whitman as the 1%ers who constantly are trying to come and push forth like 1% legislation that goes against the social and economic justice that Occupy is fighting for, and talk about some of the legislation that they signed on to, that this is very inherent, and point out some of the very obvious ways in which they are not working for the people.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. And it's a good point you just made, that this is not a single issue movement. It's not just police brutality. It's not just economic injustice. It's not just social injustice. It's 1,000 different things. And at the root, there is a root that all that comes from. And the more light we can shine on those issues, and the closer we can get to the roots, the better we can have a chance of changing it. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the group?
Actually, I don't know if you guys follow on Facebook, but I have a Bella Echo page.
Hmm.
It's all one word, just like my Twitter handle.
Okay.
And I do a lot of announcements on that of just about Occupy stuff in general. But one thing in particular right now that we're dealing with is the Ice Cream 3 or the Oak 3. They were arrested and the police are using live stream footage, particularly my footage. And one of the people that are in question are being held responsible for felonies at this point is a best friend of mine for 5 years. So, I kind of wanted to address the fact that live stream is there for protection. And if they didn't even have my footage, there's still the cameras from the stores, the cameras from the banks, the cameras from the officers themselves, to where that footage would be used to incriminate occupiers, to where live stream is still definitely needed, but it is a blessing and a curse. So
Right.
if you are an occupier and you realize that there are live streamers there, know that they're usually there, and this is in my opinion, from my own perspective. I can't speak for every single live streamer, but typically are there to discuss the issues with the system, to discuss the issues with the police involvement or the police retaliation, the escalation of the police violence upon the protesters, and not necessarily to catch or to try to incriminate protesters who may or may not be anarchists or patriots or whatever, what have you.
Right.
So, yeah, the conversation about live streamers right now is very controversial. And I think in Oakland, like I'm pretty well known and people know my stance. And because of the fact that this is a friend of mine from a personal walk of life way before Occupy, I think that it's also protecting a lot of the attacks that I could be facing if these were only occupiers.
Right.
So I just want people to realize that me being a live streamer and similarly other live streamers are put in a very awkward position to where we never really know exactly what's going to happen right in front of us. And the intent is to always help Occupy, to help the movement sustain and not to hurt it. So we have to be very conscious, and that security culture versus transparency needs to be discussed, and people need to be conscious of that when they're out there all the time. And so that's something that I would like to say right now, because personally it's a lot to deal with, and right now we need $28,000 bail just for 3 people. We're not even talking about the rest of people that have been, like one individual, Khalid, has been in jail for 4 months now, and his crime was pulling a blanket out of a garbage can as a homeless individual. And now he may face life in jail, life in prison. So, these are the things that we're fighting against. And, the live stream, we're trying to use that as a protection method. But you definitely have to be conscious of the fact that this systematic oppression that Occupy is fighting against is very dangerous and very prevalent. And if you are going to support the movement, it comes with risks. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I always like to kind of say, especially at this point, because it's picking up speed.
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic point to make. If you'll just bear with me for a second, I'm going to do a couple of clicks and see if I can get a chat window open just in case there's questions from the chatters. So
No problem.
let me try that. And chatters, just be patient with me. My Procaster crashed, so let me see. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I've got a hunch something might be going on. Okay, let me pop this guy out. Move this over. Get you back on screen. Okay, so back on screen.
Audition.
So I need to.
Damn, you got like a sunburn on you.
But only one.
Bear with me.
Naruto.
I want to dive into
No
a
problem.
See what.
Here, put that on. We're almost there. It's going to be great when I get it figured out. There we go. And we're going to do that. And then we're going to do that. Now, I think I got my cake and eat it too. So I'm
Okay.
sorry to the chat stream. Now's a good time to throw your questions up to them in bolds or italics, and I'll be glad to read them off. And I'm seeing some messages on here that the other live streams are having problems too. So, Susie, Ben, over, anybody on here? Hello, people. Any questions? Okay. We got a shout out from somebody on Occupy Unity saying they follow you religiously. And do you guys, yeah, do you guys have any communication with the NYC streamers? Like, do your streamers contact NYC streamers? Do you guys share information and skill sets?
I talked to a few. I don't think that, like, we don't have anything organized. This is why I was saying that we need to kind of talk about things. But I do talk to a few streamers from New York. Occupy Steve is one of my favorites out there. I believe Spencer, who is up the show, deals with Timcast a lot. So I'm like, we do have some connections, but I'm like, we need to put something together to where we can do this, like, and have definite contacts and be linked as, you know, an Occupy Oakland to Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Is comes back to tying in that communications network between groups and all that. One of our mods asked, do you know about the United Streamers Roundtable on Mumble?
Yeah, I do that on Sundays. I missed this Sunday because I had some stuff that I had to go, another meeting that I had to go to that I couldn't miss. But I do try to get the streamers roundtable on Sundays as much as possible.
Yeah, this weekend was so busy it was hard for anybody to get onto anything that wasn't a stream, right? I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, overcoming solidarity from New York, we're having the same escalation of police tactics. How do you keep people from becoming more and more fearful of getting involved?
The one thing that we keep saying is that you can't be intimidated out of your rights, you know, and we use, well, and I can't say we, let me say that I, because this is typically me, my personal conversations with individuals, but I use January 28th with the 409 arrest as an example. When I tell them, like, I was walking down, like, 14th and Harrison, which is downtown Oakland, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, with my pink Hello Kitty backpack on and a camera, and I'm screaming for the police to please not shoot me as I walk down the street. There are people that live in that area who had their windows open and were tear gassed just because their windows were open and they were home. So I'm like, if this can happen in front of your home or downtown Oakland, you can't be afraid to come speak out against it, because it can happen anywhere at any time to anyone. So at least fighting against it is better than just letting it get worse. So I'm like, it's unfortunate, but basically you just need the perception shift of society. You just have to keep on with the hard work, like the kind of the door-to-door type of outreach conversation, and hopefully eventually people reach that tipping point, and you actually start to see a lot more, you know, reach it in Oakland specifically. But like, one of the new things, and since people are watching, I just want to say this, like, one of the new things that we're hearing is that, like, if you're an occupier and you're leaving an Occupy event with occupiers and somebody is being, like, blamed for a crime, you all are now aiding and abetting because you were together and you're occupiers. And if this works, because that's one of the things that was said in court with the Ice Cream 3, if that precedent works, then that means that we are guilty, like guilt by association, just because we were somewhere together and I'm standing next to you. I don't even have to know you or maybe even realize that I was standing next to you at this point. So, like, we can't be afraid to come and stand out against that type of corruption in the government. That could affect anyone at any point in time. And the wording of these laws are written very loosely to where it's not Occupy specific. So, you know, just keep talking to people and really keep up the personal relationships, because it's the personal relationships that bring people more involved. Like, my aunt and my parents and them may support Occupy from a distance, but I guarantee you probably won't see them out here until I go to jail. Right. You know? And so I'm like, personal relationships are a lot of the way that I think the movement will continue to sustain itself, and it will overcome any amount of fear, because it's kind of like a mother and their child, or, you know, a mom and their cubs. Like, I can be afraid, but when I have to protect the people that I love and I have to stand up for what's right, like, I will overcome that to do so. So, you know, that's kind of what we're hinging upon. We're doing that and fighting the PR war.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's exactly what it is. You know, we have to work on impression management every minute of every day. One person asked about what's MSN doing there. Are they, you know, giving you fair coverage, or are they blacking out, or do they ignore it?
It's a combination of things. Like, on the very positive events, there tends to be a blackout. we can kind of depend on some of the more alternative sources of media, like on local news, like KPFA, or maybe Al Jazeera. RT does some stuff, but I was really disappointed at their coverage of the Sacramento event. It seemed very biased for a negative viewpoint against Occupy, with not very many facts on the Occupy side. So I'm like, we go through a number of different varying tactics or ways of attack by way of mainstream media or mainstream corporate media, whether it be a blackout, misrepresentation, or using misrepresentation, I don't know, in a number of different ways, like taking a screen or a sound bite of somebody's 30-minute interview and framing that for a bias. Like we go through a number of different attacks. It's unfortunate, but I actually got to interview a Fox News reporter.
Oh, you interviewed
recently.
Fox? That's awesome.
I interviewed him. He came over and interviewed us, and I was like, well, I have a few questions. And so he was very nice, and he responded. And the one thing that, we both were talking about, and I told him, is that I'm really sorry that working for a major network compromises your journalistic integrity, but you have to keep your job. It's unfortunate that a lot of the reporters are in the same position of the police department, the police officers. They are 99%, but in order for them to keep their jobs, they have to do the work of the one, which puts them in a very, very difficult situation, So, yeah. That's pretty much fun.
Yeah, the people want to know if you think that the public pressure that people at home do by making phone calls and sending faxes and petitions to government offices is effective and helpful.
I think it's effective, but I kind of feel like I feel like both elements need more. I feel like the on the street filming spectacle needs more support, and I feel like the behind the scenes support from people at home who are less like active in the marches and things like that need to also increase. Mm-hmm. We see some changes, and we see the elevated attacks of the system by way of the system are signs that we're strengthening and that we are actually presenting a threat to the status quo. So I think in things to continue to make a difference, that we have to keep going. That's why the intimidation tactics, that's why the increase of abusive legislation to stop people from doing things that are obviously threatening the status quo. Right. So, I think that it's not only is it helping, but it's definitely helping reach the goal to in a way that demands that we have to do it more.
Right, and it all matters equally. No, there is no small effort. It all matters.
No, most definitely.
We did a interview the other night with Code Pink out of San Francisco, and one of the chatters asked if Oakland Occupy is connected to a lot of groups and organizations like that out there. Do you have a broad spread participation?
We do have a broad spread participation. We have a number of different local unions. We've seen support from like a number of different organizations who help with homelessness, who help with home foreclosures, we have teachers, we have the Black Panther Party in some instances has started to come out more, Angela Davis. So I'm like, we have a very widespread participation. We just need more people to get involved, like more bridge building so that some people can understand like why Occupy is fighting for them, even though they may not have heard their argument come out to the forefront just yet.
Right. That's good. And that comes back again to the communication and the relationships. It all comes back to that.
Right.
Susie asked if you've ever run across any police that appear to be sympathetic to the cause.
Yes. Yes, however, good cop, bad cop. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. With Occupy Oakland continuously being under surveillance 24/7 by police officers, you have to wonder if they're actually being sympathetic to the movement or if they're coming over trying to make you feel like they're sympathetic so that they can probably pry some information out of you that you would not normally be willing to give them. Yep. So, it's very difficult to assess now who you can and can't trust based on their job, with the police department, with people working just with people working within the city. You're not even entirely sure what their motives are. So I'm like, I've had some police officers even come ask me if I could get them an Occupy t-shirt and make sure that the t-shirt was black and the writing was white because they have to wear black shirts underneath their uniforms. So I'm like, I've totally been asked that, but and talked to by various officers, but is this the organic feeling of this officer, or is there some type of alternative ulterior motive behind it? I don't know.
Right, and you're trying to make all those judgments on the fly, you know, under in a highly charged situation. So, it
Right.
I know
But
we're
what I know is that, well, I'm sorry. What I was going to say, what I do know is that I've seen those very same officers who are very nice and cordial to me and seem to be sympathetic come out during those riot attacks with tear gas and smoke grenades and all of that. They've been there and I've seen them. So, once again, I don't know,
yeah.
honestly.
Well, you just have to be safe and I guess be cautious and be dubious of everybody you don't know, but you don't want to be paranoid, right? It's a balancing act. But we're finding that out more and more. We're trying to talk to people who are on the marches and on the ground and other live streamers, and that seems to be a pretty common thing. It's like, well, you want to be engaging and inclusive of people, but then especially an authority figure, are they really representing themselves honestly, or are they trying to use it for leverage? And it's a fine line to walk. And all of you guys do it so well. Are there any other questions from the chat stream?
Yeah, because I gotta get
you
ready to go.
got stuff to do. Yep. Well, we're going to go ahead and wind it up so you don't have to rush. And we really appreciate all your time and all your comments. And I apologize for the technical stuff, but I think we pushed through it pretty good. And people are just expressing their thanks and their appreciation. I want to tell you I have much love and respect for you, your professionalism, and all the work you're doing. Thank you for spending time with us, and we wish you well and hope to stay in touch. Do you want to just give us, let us know your Twitter handle, Facebook, everything is all the same? Your same
it's
username?
all Bella Echo, one word.
Okay, all Bella Echo, one word. And I'm going to tell you, she's a busy lady, but she gets the messages.
I do. I try my best to reply to everything, but sometimes it takes me a little bit because I get a lot. But just like, you guys, I could go film everything, but if nobody watches it, it wouldn't mean anything. So, like, the viewers is what makes me feel confident enough to stand there with my camera and feel like it is a shield. You know what I mean? To feel like I am being protected. So, I mean, I want everybody to know that appreciation is definitely there. And I love all of you for it. And I love all of my viewers. And I really love all of my viewers that click on my donation link. Because we live in a capitalist society and nothing is cheap.
Yeah, well, we're putting the link up as you speak. So you have viewers here, and I know we're being shadowcast on at least one other channel. So some people have gotten to hear what you had to say today. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. And I wanted to open up and extend an invitation to, like, if you're following and you want to try to interview or talk with me, or maybe if you're interested in interviewing someone else, get with me and I'll be happy to help you out with that. I think that spreading this awareness and allowing people to have their voices be heard is very important. So I really appreciate the interviews and what you're doing. So yeah, let me know.
Yeah,
get with me.
One of us will be touching base with you about that shortly, because that was something we want to do. We would like to talk to some West Coast people to mix in with the East Coast and start building that dialogue. So that's very generous of you to help facilitate that. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Well, go do your thing. Give Mitt hell tonight and be safe and take care of yourself. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye, guys.